All right. Nicole Annette, welcome to A Cup of Clarity. It is wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Absolutely. We follow each other's accounts and have been following each other's accounts and supporting each other's Instagram accounts for some time now. And I felt like you were such a great fit for my community and my podcast listeners that I was really excited to have you here today to have this conscious conversation about the power of journaling to really change our lives and the ability that this practice can have to transform our lives. So thank you once again for being here. Before we get started, I always like to ask my guests to tell me something that they're grateful for in this day. So what are you grateful for today?
I love that question. That was the theme of my day this morning in my Instagram stories. So what am I thankful for? And I want to say that what I live by is that gratitude is so imperative in my life because it doesn't change a situation. But for me, gratitude alters my perspective of the situation. So it's a very important practice in my life. And just this morning, I woke up with the thought that I'm grateful for my mindset. Like the mindset that I have right now, the mindset to thrive and to flourish and to have compassion for other people and to love and to look outside of my immediate problems and my situations and just to look at the world from a community standpoint. So I'm very thankful that my mind is open in that way. A lot of our society right now is so narrow-minded on so many issues. And so just to be able to be free in your mind, just to enjoy life as it is, I think that's a big blessing. So I'm very thankful for that.
That is beautiful. And it does resonate with me because I do have a beautiful practice of gratitude every day and try to, even if it's just a couple of things, sometimes I can go off and just find as many things as I can. And it just really does change your energy and the way you see things in life.
Exactly.
So I love that. And the other thing I want to say that resonated with me when I first found your Instagram account, obviously the part about journaling, I had never really heard about a journaling coach. And I just loved all of the things that you posted and the way that you write your post. You always feel like you're speaking directly to your community, which is so important. But as I got to know you a little bit better through Instagram and our exchanges and whatnot, I didn't realize that we have a lot in common. First and foremost, we're both left-handed, which is like not really a common thing. Most people, it's a right-handed world we live in, right? And we're both moms. We both have backgrounds in education. We both love coffee, which obviously a cup of clarity, that's a big deal here. I think you love horses as well. And being in nature, which we're going to get to a little later in the podcast, and a love of family heirlooms, which I have too. I love things that are like from long ago and antiques and things like that. So it just proves to me that social media, you can find great connections on there.
Yes.
As you do that. So for those that don't know you, I'd love for you to just begin to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Well, I am a native Ohioan from urban Cleveland, the suburbs of Cleveland. And that's where I started my education. And so throughout the years, I've always had the heart-centered mentality of helping people. I've always wanted to help people, and I've helped people and I went to school for physical therapy and got 3 years into that, wanting to help people. Did not finish that because it just did not work out. So I switched to occupational therapy. Then I switched again to speech therapy. And so the whole point was I wanted to help other people. And I was just trying to find my space in the world where I could do that. And so eventually I got my degree in psychology just to get out of school. But after that, I've worked about 20 years in nonprofit and working with juvenile delinquents and like in the jails and different various group homes.
Wow.
And I love that kind of work. I love the work of nourishing other people and providing them with the tools to be successful in life. And so after I received my bachelor's, I went into education and I taught for a while in the public schools, K through 12 as a substitute teacher, and didn't really find my footing there. And so I went into school on a whim. And it was a free program. I was paid to go there. It wasn't free, but I got a graduate assistantship. And in that program, the professor changed my life. It was a master's
Nice.
program of adult learning and education. And just the way he approached teaching and working with adults and teaching adults. And I fell in love with that. And so I said, I am going to be a professor. Like, I love education. I am a continuous learner, lifelong learner.
Same here.
And so then I went to school to get my PhD in psychology. But before the program finished, I met my husband, who was down here in Asheville. And so I decided to put that part of my education on hold and to just move here with him. And we started a family. And so through the years, I've taught at universities. When I came here, I taught at a community college. And all the while I was writing. And eventually I got pregnant and got really sick. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. And that season totally changed my life. And so after that season, I poured myself into my own business and began to teach other women how to heal through journaling. And so that's I started my business in 2008. So almost 13 years I've been married and my business has started as far as the journaling. And so that's where I am at this point. So now all of that has cultivated where I am right now in this season. And so
I love that.
Yeah.
It took so many twists and turns,
Yes.
right? And it's almost like when we see like that bigger vision of our lives, it's easy to kind of look back in hindsight and go, oh, I get it. When we're in it, it's hard. But if you can kind of, I think, sometimes step back and see that every moment, right? Every part of our lives is an important part.
Yes.
And if we take any kind of piece of it out, it just doesn't flow the way it's supposed to, right?
That is true.
So how did you come to actually journaling as a practice for yourself in life?
Well, I've always been a writer of a sort. I got my first diary. It was all pretty with like kittens on the front, yellow and blues and pinks. And it was a 9-year-old birthday present from my parents. And so that was my first lock and key diary. And I actually still have that. Just amazing. The things I wrote back there. And the funny part is, Jeanette, that I wrote that I was going to be a teacher, but I resisted that throughout all of my years until I got into the master's program. So that was very interesting to look back on my 9-year-old self and see that I was going to be a teacher and now I'm teaching. So that's funny. But yeah, so they bought that for me. And I just was always writing something down, poetry, quotes, things that I observed in my life, the way that I felt, situations through high school and through college and my early adulthood. So I started at 9 years old.
I think most little girls start, right? And especially the ones, I remember those with the lock and key.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that a lot of us give up that practice. It's like a childhood thing. And then to really have it as a life practice, sometimes we pick it up later in life. Either someone gives us a journal again as a gift later on in life, or we listen to a podcast like this or run into someone like you in life and really feel like this is something maybe I want to start all over, obviously at a deeper level, which I know we're going to talk a little bit more about. You mentioned being a mom, and I know that that's something I am too. I'm a mom of an 18-year-old, and you are a mom of two young boys.
Right.
Tell me, what lessons have you learned from being a mom to your two boys?
Sure. My sons are 4 and 9. And what they've taught me is two things. Number one is humility and compassion. And I've realized that, it's funny because we as adults are forced into this role that we know everything. And if we don't know, at least act like you know everything. And so I stepped into that role because as mom, as wife, as adult, I need to be in a position where I know everything. But I've learned that just being vulnerable with my children and letting them know that, look, this is my first time being a mother of a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. Yeah. So I may not do everything right. I have apologized to my children and just say, we're going to learn this together. Let's just go through this season together. And I'm going to learn and I'm going to help you learn as we both get through this. And so looking on family life with compassion, and looking on their growth with compassion, with the far-sightedness of I'm raising men in this society and I'm raising Black men in this society, and the responsibility that I have on myself that I feel to impart all the goodness that I can into them, that to keep them safe, to keep them wise, to keep them to be a contributing part of society. I feel that pressure. And so I'm not going to act like I know it all, that I can handle it all, we can do this all. No, we're going to do this together. And so that's one major thing that they've taught me. One more thing that they've taught me is don't be afraid to let your emotions show. My children are exuberant about life. My 9-year-old, just the smallest thing lights his face.
Amazing.
His eyes are so bright. His teeth are just out there, the huge smile. And my youngest son, he just looks forward to memories making and experiences. And again, as adults, we have this thing about we can't show our emotions. If someone gives us a compliment, we barely say thank you. Oh, it's nothing.
Right.
We don't want to
don't
smile.
mention it, right?
We get an award or something, any accolades, then we don't want to smile and receive. It's hard for us to receive. And they are just open to receiving everything and to sharing those natural human emotions. And so they've challenged me to smile and say thank you and be okay with the feeling of I feel good right now because my hard work was acknowledged, or I feel good right now because it's my birthday. So I'm going to smile and say thank you as you all are singing. It's okay. And so just learning to embrace every emotion and every part of the human experience, that's been a powerful lesson that I've learned from my boys.
And that's the one thing I have to say. And I do parent workshops sometimes. And one of the things I say to parents is that when we leave the hospital with the baby, they don't hand us the manual to say, all right, when you run into this problem, go to chapter 5, page 47, and you'll find the answer there. You just kind of go and you do the best you can. And I love some of the things that you mentioned: compassion, vulnerability, and being open and showing them, what it means to be a young man in today's world. That's amazing. I find with kids too, and I always found this with my daughter, is just their ability to be present. 100%. That you were just that joy. And I always think, like, when does that sort of kind of like the record scratch for us as we get into adults? You get that, okay, now that's it. No more of that. You can't play. It's like the fun has been, you have to be serious.
Yes.
There'll be this or that in society. And when we start to feel those pressures, and it's so important to kind of go back to that just childlike joy every day. So it's a beautiful thing that you still have them at that age where you can really benefit from that energy from them. It's amazing. Getting back a little bit into journaling, I feel sometimes that there's a little bit of misconceptions out there about what journaling is, what it should be, how to do it right, how to go about carrying it out. So I wanted you to shed some light for us on journaling as a practice for transformation and share with us what happens when we just simply start to write.
Oh, I'd love to talk about this all day. So journaling, I think journaling is viewed as a couple of things. Number one, as you mentioned earlier, something that we did as children. You know, it was cute. We had our diaries, lock and key. Our secrets are held up in this book. And then another way of looking at journaling is that it's dangerous. This is my own words, that journaling is dangerous because of the navel gazing that people think journaling is. When we write in our journals, to me, journaling is an introspective look at who I am as a person.
Right.
It's not a place to enter the spiral of defeat, self-defeat, negativity, writing every negative thing down in our brains and leaving it there.
Like venting, you mean?
Venting, exactly. It's a journey. And so the way that I approach the practice, the way that I use it in my life and the way that I teach it to my community is it's like building a relationship with yourself. When we are meeting someone new, we want to learn more about them. When we're creating a relationship, we want to create and cultivate that trust. And so the more we learn about the person, the more we communicate, the more we establish that trust. And the more trust we're able to establish, the more love we're able to cultivate. And so when I'm talking about journaling, that is a personal conversation with yourself. That's a way to understand who you are from the inside out, understanding yourself in every aspect of your life, and knowing what your thoughts are, what are your feelings, what are your behaviors, and how do these things relate to each other to create your life, right? And so the more we constantly talk to ourselves and communicate with ourselves, the more we're able to understand and know ourselves, and then we can trust ourselves. And that self-trust leads to that self-compassion and that self-love, which I think is so important for us, especially as women, who I believe are the leaders of our communities. It's so important that we understand what self-compassion is and self-love, so that it's all about nourishing. And you hear that a lot in my work. I love the word nourishing because I firmly believe that when we're able to nourish ourselves with the good things, then we're able to flourish. And we're able to flourish. We're able to feed others from our goodness, from our tree, from what we have to offer, from our overflow, you know? Yes. And then only when we're able to be nourish ourselves are we able to nourish others and those that we love and care for and serve. And so that's how I approach journaling in my life.
I love it. Absolutely. I something that you said resonated with me and reminded me of Lisa Nichols. She was one of the contributing authors to The Secret many years ago, and she's a powerhouse woman and powerhouse speaker. And she talks a lot about giving from the saucer. So it's like your cup is so overflowing that at that point, you're now giving to folks from the spillover in the saucer because you are so full yourself. And I think as women, it's true. We give so much to everyone and we sort of replenish ourselves last. And it's kind of has to work the other way around. And I think part of the beauty of journaling is being able to, as you mentioned, knowing yourself, trusting yourself, nourishing yourself, and then kind of stepping out into the world, sort of feeling that fullness within, and that just can give to everyone else now because you're full. It's kind of like when your phone is dead.
Exactly.
You have to recharge it every night.
Exactly.
You said in one of your posts that writing for self-awareness and personal transformation, that the power was in the questions we ask ourselves. And I couldn't agree more. That introspective kind of digging that you mentioned.
Mhm.
How do we know what questions to ask ourselves, though, when we journal?
That's a great question. Um, my favorite question to ask myself is, what do I need right now?
Mm,
I think if we all start there, what do I need right now? And if we're not able to answer that question, we can maybe go a little bit externally and ask ourselves, what would I wish? What do I need from someone else?
mm.
Or what do I need to hear from someone else? Or what would I wish that someone would do for me right now in this season? And so I guess just asking yourself first what you need, maybe what you're feeling. How is my heart right now? Those are all self-compassionate, self-supportive questions that I love to start with. But if you're just starting from scratch
Mhm.
and you just want to start journaling, you can just start off with a simple question of, what do I like? What don't I like? What do I want more of right now? What do
It's
I want less of right
those
now?
clarity questions.
Exactly.
We're
Exactly.
starting to see, and they guide us somewhere little by little,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And if you feel a resistance, why am I feeling this resistance? What don't I want to share? What am I afraid of right now? And just again, just as you create that communication with yourself and open those lines of communication, it's hard in the beginning,
Mm.
especially when you're not used to, you don't want to face yourself or face your truth. Journaling could be a bit fearful or scary. But just if you want to know more about yourself, just giving yourself permission to ask yourself questions. And like you said, one question will lead to the next. And as these questions pop up, just write them down and be willing to answer them honestly.
I think that willingness, that just taking that first step of
Right.
putting pen to paper. And that leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is that you believe that words can change our lives, and that with every word that we put down in our journals, we're creating this ripple effect of growth, which I find is
Yes.
so powerful. So can you expand on that belief for us a little bit?
Sure. I believe that words are a manifestation of our thoughts. And there's a life coaching model that's out there. And it's really a human experience model, really. And it says that your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings direct your actions, behaviors, and choices. And your behaviors and choices, we know that creates our life, that becomes our lives. And so when we have those words in our heads or those sentences in our heads, they are, again, words are tangible thoughts. And
Yeah.
so when they're allowed to exist on paper, they become malleable. And now we're able to take those thoughts and do something with them. You can attach the thoughts to our feelings and attach the feelings to our behaviors. And then with practice, you're able to say, this thought is affecting this behavior in this way. So, how can I slightly shift this thought in order to give me the result that I want right here in my life? And so being able to get everything out of your head, I know a lot of us are like, I'll just think about it in my head, I'll just process it
Yeah.
in my head. And we do that, but we think over 70,000 thoughts a
A
day.
day.
And so we're
True.
going to forget to process this over here. And so just having a place to process, a place to get those thoughts out on paper gives us more control over our thinking cycles and patterns in the process. And then being able to, like I said earlier, attach them and align them with our behaviors. And it becomes to me like a puzzle piece. I
Mhm.
know I am creating this behavior. Why am I taking this action? Okay, what am I feeling that's producing this action? Okay, so what thoughts are producing these feelings? And it becomes like a kind of a game, word game for me in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just definitely makes them more real. And so if you're able to shift those thoughts, then you're definitely able to shift your entire life.
So because I think it offers us intention. Once we
Right.
have it down and we know now, okay, this behavior needs to sort of, I need to let go of this, or I need to step into that. Oh, this is where the fear is. And all of a sudden, as you mentioned, it gives you direction. The clarity
Exactly.
gives you direction, and it gives you the intention to follow that lead. You recently actually had some major clarity on being more intentional with your time. I remember reading about that. I
Oh,
think it was in
yes.
one of your posts, and you called it hashtag no more hustle, which I love, because I was like, yes, I think so many people can resonate with that, to the feelings of always having to being like hustle and bustle in life, and sometimes even hustling for our worthiness, and
Yes.
feeling, as you called it, bone dry at times. So I'm interested in knowing, what was the catalyst for you in finding this clarity?
Well, it's interesting because there's a story and there's always a story, right? And just the way I am, my personality is that I am a go-getter, go getter. And I've never known how to rest.
Mm.
I've never known how to accept help. In my early adulthood, I'm one that always will handle it myself because I can do it the best. And I just recognized I'm a perfectionist. Never knew that. And so, um, but I've always experienced frustration and stress and overwhelm. Those three um, emotions kind of just generate throughout my whole entire adulthood. And I've known that. And I've always wondered, why am I so stressed out? Why am I so frustrated? Why am I so overwhelmed? And it's because I've been doing all the things all of my life. And my parents will always tell me, Nicole, you got to slow down. My family and friends would say, slow down. You're doing this. I was in college taking 18 credit hours. I worked three
Wow.
jobs, even one job overnight. And
Wow.
so always the hustle. My first business was at 5 years old. I hustled at 5 years old to get the dollars for the ice cream cones.
There you
And
go.
so I was always just on a mission, a money-making mission, a helping others mission. I did not say no and didn't have many boundaries. I was just going nonstop. And so I've had like 2 nervous breakdowns in my life from
Wow.
just overworking myself. When I was in college with the 18 credit hours and the 3 jobs, I had a nervous breakdown. Just really small, just, this is not funny. It was funny. It's funny now, but it was
Funny
not
now.
funny then. And just really quick into that. So I was so tired. I hadn't slept for maybe 40 hours. No, I'm sorry. 48 hours, 24
Yeah,
hours in one day, right?
it's like 2 days,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah, 2 days. Yeah. Like 40 hours. Yeah, about 40 hours. And I was just doing papers and trying to graduate and working those 3 jobs. And I worked at a charter school, and something happened at the charter school. And I started laughing. And I could not stop laughing
Oh.
for about an hour and a half. And that was my first clue, indicator that, girl, you got to stop. And so I went to sleep, and I slept maybe for like 15 to 17 hours straight. And that was the first time. And it happened again. And then recently in January, I found myself burned out again. So at this point, I began to ask myself, what are the patterns? What am I doing? Because I've been very intentional for the last 2 years. And so my plate has been clear. But I realized that with COVID, I never stopped. I became a homeschool mom
Right.
with everything else. And I kept my same schedule. I kept my workload increased with my business, which was a blessing at the time. But just things changed, and I just kept on going, And so at that time in January, I said, no, I cannot live like this again. And so that was the catalyst to the recent burnout. And I was doing a project with my business that lasted for 52 weeks. And that was just part of the burnout, just trying to serve others, trying to give, just trying to love and serve, but wasn't effectively filling and nourishing myself.
Right.
And so, yeah, in January, I turned a corner and just been seeking peace. And since then, life has been grand.
And I can see it in your posts, just the way,
Yes.
just all of that. And then once you've learned the lesson, you're now able to teach it to
Right.
others and let them know, hey, on the other side of this, there is peace.
Mhm.
So that's beautiful. It's hard, and I can relate to so much of that because I grew up with anxiety most of my life. Again, a people pleaser, very little boundaries, always trying to just be everything to everyone.
Right.
And I ended up with something called Bell's palsy at the age of 19, which is a facial paralysis. And when they basically told me, the neurologist said, this is due to stress at the age of 19, so I think it's important to have that just pause and just learn in life, and just doing that extra awareness that you're saying where is this coming from?
Right.
Why am I here again? And it's great once we learn the lesson, is such a blessing, because we can really move forward from then, once and for all, I think.
Right.
And Nicole, back in the fall, you did something that I even remember sending you a couple of messages about, that despite your fears and being out of your comfort zone, you decided to go on a backpacking women's retreat in the forest. And so what did that trip teach you about facing your fears and just fear in general?
Oh, that was so fun. I cannot wait until
You look like
they
you had
do
a
it again.
blast.
Oh my goodness, yes. And so I'm a nature girl, always has been. We were raised outside. And so, but I always feared the dark. Again, living in the city, my dad is like, he raised us as watch your back at all times,
Okay.
be observant at all times, have your plan of out just in case this happens or that happens. And so we were always looking and being on guard and being on our watch. And so we were taught, don't go out after dark. That's not safe. All right. And don't go in the woods after dark. Like, that's just not safe. And so, but the trees for me are just so comforting. And so I said, no, I want to go camping. I want to be able to feel comfortable out in nature, even in the darkness. And so when this trip popped up, my friend who was a coach was co-leading it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to join you all. And so it was kind of a spur of the moment trip. And
those are the best.
Yes.
Sometimes
so
you don't have time to think about it too much to back out, right?
Exactly. I already paid for it. So now it's done. No refunds. And so I remember we'd like travel into the mountains a good way, and then hike a good way to our first spot. And the twilight was coming, and we were setting up our tents, and I'm looking around like, it's nothing here but woods and a creek, and like, where are the bears and crazy people, like, and I just said, I'm here. And so what will happen will happen.
Great.
And that's just the season that we're in right now. Just breathe and enjoy this moment. And so we're setting up our tent, and the darkness fell, and we were around the fire, and my back was to the open. And I'm like, okay, I cannot check my back. It's dark back there. And I felt very uncomfortable for a while. But as I began to just ease into it and enjoy the fire and the warmth of the fire, I realized that the fear was greatest in my head. And
yes.
It was irrational. There was nothing out there. And so I was very proud of myself for sitting in that fear and just writing it out in that moment. I even wrote that in my journal. Like, I'm sitting here by the campfire, fully afraid, but fully intentional to enjoy it. And once
Amazing.
I got through that moment, I began to enjoy it. I began to just relax. And that was the catalyst of facing my fear. And so since then, I've just kind of been launching off into whatever, just face it and just move through it, because the largest part of it is in your head. And once you get there, you can do it and just move forward. It's not going to kill you. That's kind of what I say. It's not going to kill me. And if it does, okay, just meant to be. But I'm going to enjoy this moment.
No bear sightings? No.
There's more bears in my backyard, Jeanette,
Oh, no way.
than we saw in the woods.
There you go. I just love that you did that, because that's like, I've traveled by myself. I've gone hiking in Sedona and in Acadia National Park in Maine. And some people are like, by yourself? You went like on a trip by yourself? Like, you ate at a restaurant by yourself? You went hiking by yourself? I said, yes, because I needed to do that. And then once I did it the first time, I'm like, I love this. I needed that time alone.
Yes.
I mean, it was probably a beautiful thing to have all those other women there with you, and you kind of formed those bonds with new people. But just that time in silence by myself was a great experience. So I had to get over that fear of the same, of just, let's just do it. And once I did it, it was like, wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's so liberating. It really is, because
it's just taking that first step.
Exactly. And then you just add another notch to your belt that I can do this. And it was very empowering for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. See, now you're ready to go again.
I am.
Nicole, the reason why I called this episode in particular Flourishing Through Intentional Journaling is because I do believe in the practice of journaling and the intentionality in doing it, how we can flourish and transform our lives through this beautiful practice, but also because your community and your program is called Flourish, where you help heart-centered women navigate transitions in life through that intentional journaling. So tell us a little bit about this wonderful community that you have and the inspiration that led you to create it.
Yeah. So my life has been a life of transition. In my adulthood, I was never one to work for other people. And so I was constantly following my heart in different jobs. I moved a lot in my adulthood, moved cross country here, and ups and downs with our jobs and my husband's jobs. And so we've moved different homes. And so it's been a lot of transition, illness, childbirth, passing of loved ones, and we all have experienced the same. And so just dealing and working through all of the transition in my life, journaling was such a huge and nourishing part, kind of like a tether. It just held me to, just grounded me, And so I began to want to share the grounding, what do you call it?
It's the feeling of that, right? That aspect of it.
The grounding aspect, thank you, of journaling and what it can do for you in transition. When women are in transition, or anyone really, it is very upsetting for some, very frustrating, extremely overwhelming, as we're in that space between what is and what's to come. Exactly. It's uncomfortable. And a lot of us don't know what to do with all of that in the middle, that middle ground, that space between those emotions that are wrapped up in that this period of time. And so just being able to share with the women in my life and my community was just, it opened up an avenue, an opportunity for me to share that on a larger scale in 2020. For the last 5 years, about 2015 or so, 2017, I've had this dream of hosting this community of women that we can work together, heart-centered women, compassion, building up who we are, empowering ourselves, nourishing ourselves together on a journey. And I've sat on that for a long time because of fear. And so in 2020, my husband said, honey, you keep talking about this program. Why don't you just go ahead and get started? Like, why not? There's no other time better than this
Then the
time.
present. Yeah.
Exactly. And that was March of 2020. And so almost the week before we shut down for quarantine is the week I opened my Flourish community. And we have been together for 12 months, 52 weeks, twice a week, nourishing each other and just writing ourselves through the
Yes.
transition from 2020. And it's shifting now. The whole program is now shifting. And it's going to be a course-based program, but it's all about women, take off your cape. You don't have to be all the things anymore.
Amen.
Anti-hustle, anti-gotta grind. Let's just sit. This is your space here. Let's just sit and be about you. What do you need right now? What do you need to nourish yourself? How can you become full so that you can again nourish those you love, care for, and serve? And so I'm really excited to reopen the Flourish program very soon in that capacity.
And the support of a community like that, women supporting women, women uplifting women, women just helping each other through the transitions. I think that's such a beautiful thing. And I see you post several things about your community every so often. And I really am proud of you. And I applaud you for that community. And so the last question, I know you've listened to my podcast here and there, and I know the last final question is a question I always ask all of my guests, and that is, what's been a moment of clarity for you in your life, whether long time ago or recently, and what did it teach you?
Mm-hmm. Well, the biggest moment of clarity that literally transformed my life was about 10 years ago, 9 years ago. My first son was born. And a couple of months later, I began to lose a lot of weight. I lost 14 pounds in 14 days. And normally I'm like, ooh, that looks good. Yes. But I obviously knew something was wrong. And I began to have a lot of issues in my throat area, a lot like a growth here. And I lost muscle mass. And just a lot of different problems. And so I went to the doctor maybe a year later. And I had acute Graves' disease, which was a hyperthyroidism disease. Wow. And that was caused, as you said, with Bell's palsy from my stressful life. My, what are those parts of your body that your stress hormones?
Yeah.
I just
can't remember now, but I mean, everything, just our body just remembers everything. It's there. It's there.
And so I started that journey of illness, and I was close to death before I realized that I needed to do something. Mm-hmm. And so it came down to the point of where I had to take radiation treatment. And I was isolated for 10 days, just alone. I'll often say just me, my journal, my pen, and God. And that's all I had to talk to. And so I began to write those important questions. Why was I here? What was my purpose? What was I doing with my life? Why was I feeling the need to be so overworked? And just to do all the things and to be the person that just was always there, just holding everyone else up. What was my calling? What were my gifts? What can I do to share more compassion and to give more into the world? We had family and friends that brought our breakfast, lunch, and our dinner at that time. Wow. And they would bring it and put it on our door's threshold, and I would open the door and wave at them through the window and say, thank you.
What a blessing.
And that taught me humility, and that taught me at that point that I need to accept help. I was forced to accept help. I talked about earlier in our conversation how it was so hard for me to accept help. Well, this forced me into that role. Right. And so just being very humble and recognizing that they were loving me and they were giving. And that giving was epitome of love. I began to question myself, what am I giving? How am I showing love to those around me? How am I changing their lives, And so that was the catalyst to a direct change in my business. I am a bookmaker by trade, and I started my business making journals in my Etsy shop. And they were cute little journals. But after this season in my life, when I began to get better after the treatment, I totally took all of my current items and products down, and I began to write my own journey in these journals and author my own journals. And the first one I ever wrote was Bloom. And Bloom was what brought me from depression. I was in a deep depression at that time, back to help me recapture who I was as a woman. I lost a lot of self-confidence, a lot of self-esteem issues in this time. And so I kind of wrote myself back to life with
Beautiful.
Bloom. And so the bloom and the flourishing has always resonated through my life ever since then. And so that was a point of clarity that I'm not living for myself. I'm living for other people. I'm living for our community. I'm living for something outside of myself. And that's how I think that we all survive in this world, is that we share and we give and we love and we help each other. And that supportive network is what keeps us going. And so that is now I'm able to weave that through my life and weave that into my business. And that was the turning point for me in that regard.
What amazing, amazing insight. I love those aha moments, when they come. And it's like you said, sometimes life forces things
Right.
on us. It's like, oh, okay, you're not listening. As Oprah says, like the whispers of spirit. Oh, you're not listening. All right, we're going to send you something a little harder next time. But I have found over time, again, I mentioned that I have a hard time receiving because I'm a giver by nature. And I remember one time I had a friend that said, Jeanette, everything in life, it's like the ocean. It's like an ebb and flow. It's a give and it's a take. And that's the beauty of it as well. And that's in relationships and connections with others. You give sometimes, then they give sometimes, and you receive and they receive. And it's just that. I love how she said it's like that ebb and flow. I always like to close my segments with my guests with what I call it the recommended segment. And so I'm going to give you 4 topics and you tell me basically what you recommend in each. So we're going to start with a simple one, a destination.
Destination, I'll have to be biased on this one, is my hometown, Asheville. Gorgeous. It has beautiful water, mountains, everything. Love it.
Great weather too.
Yeah, the weather is, we have all the seasons. So I appreciate that. Coming from Ohio, I love that we still have the seasons that change here. So I do like that.
And what about a product that you love or use that you recommend?
Okay, I brought them here to show you.
Oh, thank you.
I just bought these. My friend owns an Etsy shop, a shop online, and it's called Liberate and Lather. And her soaps are so amazing. And so that's the product I'm excited about right now and I'm using right now.
I'm writing those down because I have an episode toolkit that I do with each episode and I upload it and you can download it on my website. And I'm writing this down so I can make sure to put this in so that I can visit her Etsy shop as well. I love soaps. What about a book, Nicole, that you feel either you love or you feel everyone should read?
Well, right now, what I'm listening to on Audible is Peace is Every Step by Thich Nhat Hanh. And first, I just love the title of that book because my core value and my main core values is peace. And so with my journey beginning in January, I've just chosen to follow peace no matter what. Follow that and create boundaries that protect my peace and support my peace. And so I'm just enjoying his book about finding peace in every step of the journey and how to do that. And so far it's amazing.
I love that. I didn't know that book, so I'm going to look it up for myself. And what is an IG account that everyone should follow?
I have many, but one of my favorites is by another friend, Gigi Renee Writes, and she writes about self-care for women.
Ooh,
and
I like that.
journaling and writing, and she's very inspirational. And all of her things, her workshops, everything is just so nourishing and inspirational.
Thank you for those. They're, well, except for Asheville, which I've been to, but all the other ones are new to me. So I have something exciting to go look for tomorrow. Nicole, before we wrap up, are there any final words you would like to share with us today?
Well, I would just say, just follow your heart. Unsubscribe from all of the rules that society gives you that tells you what you have to be and who you have to be and how you have to be. And just follow what brings you peace. Follow what makes you excited. Create your own intentions and just follow your heart. That's what I'm doing right now this season.
Wise words. I love it. And it's a perfect way to end the podcast. So thank you once again for being here and for giving me your time. I know you're a busy lady, busy mom, a busy entrepreneur, but I really thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this time with me and really sharing with the listeners just all of your knowledge about what the beauty of a journey through intentional journaling and where it can take us and how it can help us flourish in our lives.
Definitely. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
I hope this episode sparked the insight within. And to learn more about Nicoles Annette, visit her website at letswriteforachange.com, or you can find her on Instagram at Journal Junkie. And to download this episode's toolkit, visit my website at JeanetteMelian.com and click on the podcast tab. Until next time, I send you love and light. May your cup be full and overflowing.